Tell me how you got started doing all this collecting video stuff.
It all started one night back in 2004. I got kicked out of Fox 39 for speaking my mind one day. So I went back to playing jazz guitar and recording CDs. I was sitting in a place downtown Johnson City called the Acoustic Coffee House. Fella that, I guess one of the regulars, that he attended out ETSU, he was into film, and he said, "Do you know anything about quad?" And I said, "You mean tape?" Of course, I worked in television most of my life as operator, engineering, maintenance, transmitter, a little bit of everything, you know. He says, "Well, my friend Bradley over at the Archive of Appalachia has got this big collection of tapes that they just received, and they're trying to figure out what to do, or what would be the best thing to do, you know, to get them restored to playing condition and transferred to some other format." I got a phone call a day or two after from him and inviting me to come over there to the Archive of Appalachia and meet with the folks and see what they had going on. And he said, "What do you think?" after he showed me their facilities and their project, and I told him what I thought. And that must have upset some people, because they didn't know whether to believe me or not.
Well, there you go, speaking your mind again.
Yeah, it gets me in trouble a lot. Everybody they had asked up until that day had told them, "No, forget it. You can't do it, it can't be done." And so I came along and I said, "Why, sure, I can do that. That's no sweat." I says, "Okay, I can probably get a machine together if I can find one." And they says, "Well, we know where there's two, but nothing ever came of that." And I thought, well, I'm just going to see if I can find a machine and just see how far I get, you know. We found some of the pieces out there in the Quonset hut. We found an Amtech, a Colortech, a Proc amp. And of course it'd been rained on and it's rusted in places, and the sun had baked some of the circuit boards, and it looked kind of like a mess. And all you could see was this big stack of wood. And on the other side there was a Volkswagen van. And I says, "Hey, you know, somebody get a light back here. I think we found it." And sure enough, the rest of the machine was there, just in a big
Now,
heap.
did you have to move the wood or the Volkswagen?
Not that night, but it was too big. And Robert had a forklift there. Not only was there a VR 1200 there, there's also an RCA TR 600 there.
Huh.
But bad luck. Somebody had really gutted the TR 600. There weren't much of it left. We finally got the Ampex home, and I spent about a year and a half after that restoring this machine that you see here. And we found the control panel up in another part of Robert's shop, and somebody had cut that big 66 pin connector off of the back of it, and they had taken all the switches and push buttons off. It was just, you know, a frame. And these are the buttons off of the TR600, you know, that Robert had.
Yeah.
Since we didn't have any buttons on the Ampex, I made a little template, and so these are all TR600. I think these are off of a TK27 control panel. And these are original meters. I was able to find some eventually.
Oh, this is what one is supposed to look like then, right?
That's an original. That's a VR1200. That's actually a B. I've upgraded it to where it's on par with a B. And now the power supply is still a VR1200. It's not got breakers or,
Yeah.
it's still the. And actually, if you look closely at this one this is a B from a 1200 also that I've upgraded to a B level. And very good, stable machines now. I'm just lucky to have gotten as far with it as I did. And this machine here came from Varnell Wolfenbarger of Knoxville. That one was bought new by WBIR, I believe, in '69. They bought a VR1200B sidecar, and that machine there, and they traded in their old TRT-1B RCAs.
Wow.
On it, and of course paid him a bunch of money to boot. He had kept all of the WBIR machines and the heads, all the extender boards, the power supply extender cables, all the test tapes, and all the manuals, all the documentation. He kept every piece of it for years, and so we finally found him, and of course we made a little deal and we were able to get those machines. We went back to WKPT and they generously donated their two TR60s to Tanis. And so we picked up where the ETSU left off. They never would do anything with them. So we decided we would. And so we went, and the folks there at Channel 19, they donated them to us, and we went and got them. And so they had two, and I took the better of the two and restored it and used the other one as a parts machine. All the servo cards are on the bottom, and the head, the motor drive power amps are down there, along with a couple other things. That's where a lot of the heat gets generated, and you can't run that thing very long, maybe about 30 minutes, 40 minutes tops, on a cool day, because all that heat generated in those drive amps heats up all the signal electronics, and after a few minutes, you start seeing stuff in your DMOD and
get squirrely.
Yeah, the servos, especially the tone wheel or the capstan, they get unstable, and of course they'll get so hot that it won't lock. There's a lot more of this stuff around. You can find RCA stuff for some reason. It seems like it's everywhere down south here, and we've got people just give us heads and donate heads to us. And
I would have thought heads would be the hardest thing to find.
We've got about 30 RCA heads. That's good working heads, and we've got about another 10 or 15 that are not so good, which are good parts heads,
Yeah.
A lot of times it'll just, you might have one tip. It depends on whether it's an issue of tip wear or maybe just the winding is open. But we've got several heads here that, that didn't have many hours. You put the micrometer on it, and man, you've got a lot of tip there, and maybe one of the tips has an open winding.
Yeah.
And so what we've been able to do is take a good tip that's got relatively the same amount of wear off of one of our defunct heads and replace it on a fairly good head, you know, and get it centered up and put it on a machine and balance it a little bit, get it, you know, balanced back, and we've had some pretty good luck with that, and thanks to a fella named Beverly R. Goach. He's a retired Ampex scientist, and a friend of mine that I've known for a while now, and he lives in the Knoxville area, and he did the first one for us. He showed us how it was done, and so Bev, with his knowledge and expertise, took the tip off, and with a microscope he unwound the old winding and all the glue off of the tip and rewound a new tip.
Gosh.
And he tested it with a you know, a frequency sweep and a spectrum analyzer and an impedance meter, a vector voltmeter. And he was able, you know, by checking one of the good windings, to match the windings impedance, you know, and his frequency characteristic.
Yeah.
With, you know, by looking at one of the good windings.
That's amazing.
And so I got any smarts I got on tip rewinding the quad heads as I got from Bev.
Well, you found the source, didn't you?
He worked for Ampex about 42 years. And Bev Goach, he's an amazing fella, folks. You never hear about him. You hear about all the other guys, the big whizzes at Ampex.
Yeah.
He was the guy that, he was into the MM1000, the 16-track heads, all of those type of heads, and
Yeah.
this sputtering technique. Now, I don't know what all that's about, but you know, that was his, I guess, forte, was figuring out all that stuff back in the 60s. This is a Mark IV head disc that Bev Goach gave me and Tamas, and so that's one I guess he maybe rebuilt, but that's a Mark IV drum.
Wow.
From Bev Goach. Oh yeah, you can see it. You see, there's that little red wire.
Yeah.
And that's Bev's work right there.
Gosh.
And he did that with a microscope. It took him, you know, quite a while. You see, the tips, usually they have that epoxy that's been brushed on there over that wire.
Yeah.
So he scraped all that off of that tip, took the tip off of the drum and put it in a holder that he had made for his microscope, where he could take just a little tiny clue,
Wow.
you know.
And show me the cover of that book there.